Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Quarantine Marketing. Today's podcast is going to be very interesting. As you guys know, I'm Alex, and joining me today is my co-host, Matt Ferrer. Matt, how you doing?
Doing great.
How's your day? How's 4th of July weekend?
4th is amazing. I went to the Cape, and then we went to New York after and returned back. But it was a great weekend.
Must have been one hell of a drive.
Yep.
That must be exciting.
It was, yes, a lot, really eventful, I would say.
But we're not going to be talking about the Cape today. We're not going to be really talking about the New York, even though New York is built of things that are happening in regards to the restaurant industry. And today I want to introduce Audrey Bilsbarrow and Trevor Shimizu. They are data experts, as I like to call it, and they're data experts specifically in the hospitality restaurant industry. And Audrey, Trevor, hello, how are we doing today?
Doing good, Alex. How you doing?
I'm excited to have you because I'm a big foodie myself. I love food. I love going out to eat. But you're doing something completely different when it comes to revolutionizing the restaurant industry. So before I get into it, tell us a little bit about what you do, how you got into it. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, definitely, Alex. We're data people from the beginning. Our previous lives, we were working for an HR tech company where we specialized collecting large amounts of data and bringing insights and analytics to Fortune 500 companies. We were a small startup that got purchased by a large S&P 500 company. In a few years working in that space, the group kind of looked at each other and said we wanted to get back together and try and do it all over again. So that's exactly what we did. Is we got the team back together and started looking around and doing some investigating on, where there's a need for data and insights. And that's how Brizo Food Metrics was really born, is looking in the restaurant industry and seeing that there wasn't all that much data and insights as there could be out there. So that's what we did, is we kind of started looking around at, what kind of information we should be collecting. And it really just kind of grew from there, is going from the websites and then going to social media, to review forums, to the delivery app sites, or really anywhere that you could find information. We're pulling it now and bringing it together and providing a dashboard to our end users that allow them really to analyze the industry and really have fresh restaurant analytics, which is kind of the most important thing, is having that fresh data to be able to make some data-driven decisions. That's really how it all started for us.
Awesome. So with everyone's first thing in mind, right, before we even talk about data, before we talk analytics, everybody's always wondering, where's the restaurant industry going, especially after this pandemic? Where do you see it from that data you're gathering, what consumers are currently doing, what your metrics are gathering? Where is the restaurant industry going? Because as you and I know, it's not going anywhere, but what is it doing?
It's definitely not going anywhere. I think that we see it going a lot more online. Just the shifts that we're seeing in a lot of the products that are out there, a lot of the new companies that are popping up out there are focusing towards a contactless and online virtual space. I mean, there's always going to be the brick and mortar restaurants, like you mentioned. I think that just our access as consumers is going to be a lot easier to get to those restaurants, to find those restaurants. I see restaurants, they were already going online, but I think this is just kind of fast forward that need, that demand for us to be walking down the streets on our phones and figuring out what's that restaurant I want to go eat at in the area, or getting it delivered to our house. So I think that we're going to see restaurants more and more, the ones that are going to want to survive long term, is really increasing their online presence and their digital capabilities. There's so many tools out there now that allow us to really enhance that customer experience. So you're going to see, obviously it starts with the websites and the Facebook pages, but now we've got digital consumer experience apps. We've seen delivery apps that everybody's familiar with. Might not be as familiar with contactless table payment solutions, where we could just make the purchase through our phone right at our table. Online ordering solutions for those that
are off your watch nowadays.
On our watch everywhere. Exactly. I think that's just the future of what we're going to see, is a lot more of that. We're still going to have that brick and mortar because, I think as a society, it's important, but it's also, we're in a fast moving that, being able to get that stuff quick and easy through my phone and through my watch is where we're heading with it.
Awesome. So why is data so important for restaurant owners today? What type of data should they be looking at? Because as a restaurant owner, you're always You got to deal with new product intakes. You got to deal with everything that's happening behind the line. I can't even mention employees. What kind of data should people be looking for as a small restaurant owner? We already know people like Starbucks, McDonald's are doing everything online already. As a small restaurant owner, what kind of data should they be focusing on specifically? What they should be looking at?
I mean, I think that there's all kinds of data they should be looking at. Consumers today are so much more educated. That's why the sites like the review sites are so popular, is people want to do some research before they're going out there, and whether it be purchasing products or eating at a restaurant. I want to know the type of place that I'm going to. There's less and less today where you just wander around and let's figure out a restaurant to go to. Looking up their menu, looking at other people's reviews, the things they like, the things that they don't like. Restaurant owners should be paying attention to what people are saying to them online. The issue is that there's so many different areas that we can get that information from, that as a restaurant owner where your time is already limited, to be able to dedicate additional time to go and look at every review site, every delivery app, what people are saying with you, all of the things, it just becomes difficult, right? So that's, I think, a big piece that they should be looking at, is really the sentiment of what their consumers are saying about them and their competitors as well, to understand what's working and what's not working. I think another thing that we do here at Brizo is we're also incorporating a lot of the demographic information. So understanding what the general consumer looks like in the area. I think it's about 60% of businesses fail within the first year, 80% within the first 5 years, right? So obviously location has a huge part to do with that. So too often you see that there's a restaurant owner that finds this nice location that looks like it's in the right area, but the concept is really just not a fit. So, you can have the best location, but if you don't have the concept to fit that location, it's just not going to work. An example of maybe having a family style restaurant in a market where it's young professionals that are single, that are not families. You can have the greatest family restaurant, but if you don't have the audience to fill the seats, it's just not going to work. So, when making those choices, there's so many options to have data, and Brizo is trying to bring all of them together so that they can become more educated. We're a data-driven society. There's so much information out there for us. Why not take advantage of it and stop making decisions based on assumptions and really start making data-driven decisions? I think that it's going to be only greater access to information for everybody, including restaurant owners, going forward. And we just want to be the ones that help that and supplement it and start driving those numbers down. We don't want to see the 60 and 80% and probably even more, unfortunately, today. What we can do is our part to help them be more educated. That's what we're looking to do.
Trevor, during the quarantine, what have you seen as the biggest change since the quarantine actually started? And specifically, what happened with restaurants, if you could see the trend that was happening?
Things that I noticed the most is obviously we saw, unfortunately, a lot of restaurants closing down.
Mm-hmm.
But what we saw a lot is when we were speaking to a lot of our clients and prospects is the complete polar opposites in certain types of companies. So the types of companies that were selling a product or service into the actual restaurant itself saw a decline in sales naturally because the restaurants were just not open. But when we're talking to online ordering solutions and delivery apps, they're seeing 10x demand. They couldn't even keep up with the amount of restaurants. So like I said, there was already a shift to that, but just seeing that this kind of highlighted that shift, that was a huge thing that we saw within there. We saw a lot of companies having to shift their offerings and what they're doing. So, the ones that were already making that adjustment towards having the delivery apps and embracing it and the online ordering, they were able to come back into business almost immediately. As Alex mentioned earlier, the Starbucks and the McDonald's, they were already there. They got teams dedicated to prepare for this. But the smaller places that didn't embrace that immediately were the ones that remained closed, or the ones that struggled, or the ones that continue to struggle, the ones that were able to make that adjustment of opening up their curbside delivery and all of that, opening up the door and just allowing people to come in and place their orders there. Those are the ones that we saw coming back. And I thought it was interesting is how innovative as people we can become when you're forced with a situation. So it was little things like that we noticed, I think, the most with the recent months.
Yeah, that's amazing, because I know in Boston, It looks a lot, it seems more livelier because a lot of the restaurants, especially in the north end especially where the Italian food is, it starts to look a little bit like Italy because every restaurant in the Italian district is outside and it looks completely different. The road, it used to be just a road and buildings, but now everyone wants to try and make their outside look more appealing, essentially because there's that competitiveness of try to make your outside look like a present, and that will get people to come. So people are buying a lot of flowers, a lot of things to decorate outside. So it essentially, yes, the restaurant industry has been taking a hit, especially for taking inside orders. But for what these restaurants have been doing to make things creative, especially outside, I think is pretty amazing. It makes the city look like a totally new, different place. And I found that part pretty exciting to see that.
You see people at small restaurants, and I've noticed this from very small owners, they're delivering food. They're delivering food to their consumers through their own cars rather than like an actual catering company that does it. They're delivering foods specifically to people. That's what people were doing during the pandemic. They were so desperate to get some sort of sales in, to get something going. They were delivering food and everything by themselves. The owners themselves were in some certain restaurants, which was crazy to me. But you see the dedication of some of these owners and what they're doing. Trevor, you talked about embracing data. That was very, when you talk about embracing data, you may be one of the first people that I ever heard of improving the reputation of a volatile restaurant industry that we're in right now, right? How do you see restaurants and restaurant vendors embracing data? What do you mean by embracing the data? What do they need to do? Because there's so much noise, there's so much information out there. Even through some of these delivery apps, they're technically becoming review platforms in some case. What do you mean by embracing data?
I mean, well, in reality, I think they need to adapt, right? So a lot of this information was not available before. So, I mean, you can understand a restaurant that's been around for 25 years before the delivery apps and before the review sites and the social media. I mean, there was a certain way of functioning and they were successful in that particular way of functioning. But again, we're seeing a shift in the consumer and the way that they focus and the way that they operate and the way that they purchase things, that ignoring it would just it'd be detrimental. You can't ignore the fact of this is where we're going as a society. So embracing the data and not being afraid of it and using it to improve yourself, to improve your location, to improve the experience of your staff, of your consumers, of everyone. It's all here just to make our lives easier. So, I mean, there's so many things out there for shift management, inventory management, delivery, as we talked about, online ordering, customer experience, applications. I mean, it's limitless, the type of stuff that's available out there, that just accepting it to allow us to continue to evolve as an industry, allowing you to continue to evolve as a business, increase, make changes as you notice it within the data. As I mentioned earlier on in the conversation of, the days of making assumptions are long gone. It's fact-based, it's data-driven. We always want to do things better for our clients. And this is just a way to allow to maybe to fast forward that and maybe give them experience or make changes that we wouldn't have been able to do previously. So when I talk about embracing the data, it might be different for some others, it might be difficult, it might be a new concept for others. But as you embrace these technologies and the data, it's only going to make things more exciting for, I think, for us as a consumer in the future, because everything is just going to be guided towards what our needs are. I think that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, if I can add to that, if we look at the beginning of the pandemic, restaurant owners that I know of around places around here that I've even spoken to, they wanted their wait staff to be taken care of. So that, as you said, Alex, you saw a lot of them being delivery people and trying to keep the employees together and keep the company going or the restaurant going. And then the interior, they were doing painting and cleaning and changing things around. No one knew it was going to last this long, and it's going to last even longer. So then that shift had to come. Well, okay, I'm trying to keep my restaurant open. I'm trying to figure out how we're going to survive this. We're not actually just taking a few weeks off and renovating the restaurant. We actually have to prepare for this. So they were so overwhelmed and drowning. And at Brizo, we decided, there's a need for actual restaurant owners to essentially be spoon-fed some information and data that they don't have to do lengthy research and just take on one more daunting task. So we pivoted what we were doing and created a free platform for the restaurant owners that would show them in my market, in my specific location, these are the most common delivery apps that are being used. This is where my customers, my guests will be found. They will find us. And so even though there are certain fees and a debate about the fees with regard to delivery apps, knowing that they could be present and available and be top of mind for their local area and their guests made it very important for them. They would give us that feedback that it was, it seems that because we're in data all the time, we're speaking it, we're living it, we're in it. So we, being able to gauge what's the most important. And the restaurant owners were able to say, showing me right now who I need to be using as a delivery app has been saving my business. So knowing that, our company, and we're not alone, so many of restaurant ordering systems and menu items that you could put on your website, improving your website. So many of them are giving free services, and to see that, because we all want to pull together, we want this backbone of our country to thrive and continue. We won't be anywhere without restaurants. In a social atmosphere and what it provides for us from human to human interaction and from the different types of food experiences and that whole need that we have to be around people and be around and of course have our 3 squares a day. So being able to see that connection has been very important.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. It is the backbone of our culture here in America. I mean, everything we do revolves around food. 4th of July revolves around food, getting people together. Anything, even going out to Thanksgiving, and people go to restaurants nowadays. They don't even celebrate at their homes. So I love what you guys are doing. I love the data you guys are bringing together and putting together in order for people to get, collectively combine everybody and get everybody together to focus on one thing. How does your data drive sales for restaurants, though? Would they utilize that data? What kind of data are they trying to look at so they can utilize for sales and build their restaurant up right now, adapting to the changes in the world?
Prior to the pandemic, you have the volatile industry that is the restaurant world. So they were already having a lot of risk to go into opening a restaurant prior to this. So now you're in it and we're in the pandemic, and how are they going to survive this? Well, that's our job through all of this, before the pandemic and even now, is to get rid of that negative connotation that it's so risky to have a restaurant. And yes, it has been risky to have a restaurant because you were kind of going in blind. You had some information. You could drive around, you could look around at other restaurants and see what's out there, but you were still essentially going in a lot of it blind in terms of the answers and the story that data can tell. So by giving them more information on who's surrounding me, instead of, beyond Google Maps and things like that, which are helpful, but being able to see what actual dietary styles do these restaurants have, what menu items, what pricing do they use, what cuisines are available, when were they established? When were these restaurants established? So if you had to do that manually and go one by one and try to pull all that information together, it'd be years before you opened your restaurant or felt the need to pull the trigger on it. So by having that kind of data, it'll help the restaurant understand. And Trevor was mentioning that too as well, talking about, is it a family style restaurant in a single environment? Is it a certain type of novelty cuisine that's just not going to work in this market? So being able to see in a larger vision what's actually appearing in my market, is it chicken and waffles? Is it, some kind of dish that's starting to trend more? So being able to have that in your vision and to know if certain restaurants have been established for a long time, what has been their formula for success? And when you can get that information through data and see externally where they touch and get some information internally because of ambiance and amenities they offer. Do they have a bike parking, and do they have a kid-friendly area? There's so many different things that you don't think of, that if you had that vision now as a restaurant owner or preparing to open in a certain market, you would go in with eyes wide open. Makes a world of difference.
That's amazing. And one thing I noticed about restaurants, especially the quarantine, it has made me realize how much I took for granted actually like going outside was, because it's something that I felt like as a general consumer on a daily basis. Oh, I can go outside and go to Starbucks, or during the workday if I'm feeling hungry, and me and Alex could go out and get some food. But now, since all that is gone, it made me realize how much I actually miss doing that. And if I do want to do it, I have to actually think about it, because am I being safe? Am I quarantining myself properly? Are other people there being quarantined properly? So it's been interesting seeing the change in dynamics of people, especially, and having that data to give for these restaurants to see what they can do to up their value is something I believe is essentially crucial for them, because it's something they need to actually, I guess you can say, survive, especially during this time, because it's like what Trevor said. Those businesses that did not do that essentially had to close down or put everything on pause because they did not want to do that slight innovation. And now that online is here, just use it to your advantage instead of just fighting back against it. So I know you are not typically in the traditional restaurant business, but I would consider it more of a data business, right? And so I'm just curious and wondering about what are the different types of verticals that could also be applicable to this? And if you had any thoughts of introducing it to like some other sub-markets.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of adjacent markets that are going through the same situation. One that we've been looking at and considering, which is very close, just the grocery market. I mean, again, it was the same concept of going out and picking up your food and being able to do it in a safe and proper way. And I mean, it's a new situation for all of us. So we saw, I don't know if it was the same thing in Boston, but I've seen a lot of grocery stores in my area starting to go online that weren't necessarily online previously. And when I go online, I'm talking about even just the ability to do online ordering and delivery through grocery stores as well. So, convenience stores, these are all adjacent industries that have the same type of service of going in and getting the product that you need. A lot of brick and mortar previously needing to adapt to the current situation and also being able to provide insights to make those decisions. So, I mean, these are a couple industries that we think are slightly related enough that there could be a need within that area as well that we've chosen to analyze, because I mean, that's essentially what we do is, we go out and we collect all the information possible and put it into one place. We want to kind of be that one-stop shop so that you can analyze your competition. You can make sure that the location that you selected is correct based on the demographics. If there's another store or another restaurant close to you that you're competing with pricing and selection of items that are within your store there. So those are some of the few examples that come top to mind to me.
That's amazing because
you're going to be soon figuring out data which delivery companies has least or most amount of COVIDs too, right? Is that going to be a data soon you guys are going to be trying to figure out?
It's amazing. Honestly, you laugh, but I can see that happening. It's crazy some of the conversations I've seen. Geo-monitoring or geolocation companies that have information on cell phone activity and where cell phones have gone, and they can see cell phones that have interacted in the same spot as each other. So it's not, I don't think it's very far to say that being able to monitor this cell phone that's had COVID activity and it's been in close proximity to these other ones. I mean, the innovation that I've seen just during these last 3 months, it's mind blowing. It's crazy just to see how innovative and adapting we are as a society. So
there's going to be a lot of changes happening, and we've already seen them in these last 4 months. It's been a crazy year, I'll put it that way. A crazy year for everybody, but it's been a great year for everybody because now everybody has to adjust. People have to learn, and people were given the opportunity to learn as well. All right, guys. Well, Trevor, Audrey, it was a pleasure having you guys on the show, and we look forward to sharing your story as well as sharing everything that we discussed today. Matt, any last thoughts?
No, so it was just more of I'm grateful for having you guys on the show. It's nice to see faces, especially taking advantage of the remote workforce, right? It's good to see you guys, essentially. I just want to say thank you for joining.
Next time we'll have Grubhub deliver to our podcast so we can eat while virtually talking.
I like that one. That'd be good.
Yeah. We could race all of them, Grubhub, Uber Eats, DoorDash, race them all over here.
Oh. Well, I think Uber Eats will be faster for us here in Boston, where maybe a different app would be better. But we would have to check out with Brizo Data to see which app I should order from.
You can find that out, definitely.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, guys. As you know, you guys could find Audrey and Trevor right below on our YouTube channel. Just click on their links, see what they do. Check out Brizo Data, especially if you're a restaurant owner. That's something you guys want for your business. That's something you guys need for your business because, like Trevor said, it's all about the facts now. That's all it is. All right, guys. Well, thank you again. And folks, we'll see you next time on Quarantine Marketing.